Hi, Alexi. It's good to have you back on the show.
Hey, Salat. Pleasure to be on the show as always. Thanks for having me again.
So usually we don't really talk about podcast news on this show. We tend to focus on strategic and tactical aspects of podcast audience growth and podcast data. But today's piece of news is pretty much about data, and it's a pretty big one at that. So we thought it'd be worth taking 10 to 15 minutes to go a bit deeper here. The piece of news I'm talking about is Spotify's release of impression data in the Spotify for Podcasters dashboard. And so for our listeners who might not know what an impression actually mean, it's just the number of time that your show is suggested in the Spotify app, either on the home section or in the library or in the search results of when users use the search bar in the Spotify app, which for us is about 96% of impressions. So pretty much the bulk of it. Do you want to tell us why this is such a exciting change?
Yeah, sure. My first comment on the news is finally. It looks like podcasting which is digital audio in itself, is finally entering the phase of data and data-driven. Before it was complex. How do people on Spotify discover my show? No, finally you have data. Is it featured on the homepage? Is it search? Is it any other things in the special promotion? And that reminds me very much of the app ecosystem 10 years ago. For those that were not active in the space, the app stores, so Apple App Stores and the Google Play Store at the beginning were very, very basic. There was not a lot of data. And time after time, they start introducing features, data, to give publishers the tools they need to grow the show, understand how people discover and consume their content, or in the case of podcasting, their audience. And that has really fueled the whole industry. The app industry today is worth billions. And I feel like the pattern is very much the same. We're at the beginning of the same in podcast, and that's exciting. So that's one of the main reasons for my excitement. The other one is it shows the importance for most of our clients. It opens the eyes. So they're like, oh gosh, so many people actually see an impression, see my cover art, my title, my star ratings in search. Well, I really need to optimize for search. So that's fueling the vision we had when we studied Voxalize, focusing first on podcast visibility optimization. Now we have data to support the importance of it. And that's really exciting as well. And last but not least, I think it's an exciting change because we see not a lot, but a significant percentage of our clients moving towards not advertising-driven business model, but subscription-driven business model. And the idea is not only to get as many downloads and to sell as many ads as you can, but to be found, be discovered, produce good content, and have people put their credit card in and get funded like that. And again, that move to subscription reminds me of 2013, Apple moving to in-app subscription. And we all know what it is today, where you can subscribe to Spotify, Amazon Music, Netflix, and many of the services directly via mobile. And I feel like we're not completely there yet, but we have made a big step towards that inflection point. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of parallels with the app ecosystem back then. You mentioned podcast cover art and other elements, which actually gives me a segue to my next question. What are optimizations that publishers can now implement thanks to this change in the Spotify's interface?
Well, it's we cover that in a great article on the website called the PVO Podcast Visibility Vision Stack. We list all the elements that could help both in being more visible within the app and as well as increasing your conversion. So when people see your assets, what entices them to click on it? The cover art is a massive one. If we go back and take the same parallel as with the apps, there's data that we've seen firsthand from Google that show that the difference in a cover art could lead to increase in click-through rate. So people seeing your cover art to people clicking on it by more than 10%. That is not insignificant. It's pretty hard to measure fully because the data that you have is not completely there, but it gives you a feel. And we have seen a lot of our clients, mostly radios and broadcasters, that typically have a cover art which is very much driven around the host or the anchor man or anchor woman of the show, to change it to be more talking about the content if those hosts or presenters were not that famous yet. So the cover art is really one thing you can implement and start testing on. The other thing is your title. Should you have a wordplay? Should it be more descriptive? That's something you can play with. And the last thing is on the ratings. Again, moving back to my years in the app world, we have seen that moving from an app with 3-star ratings, when that app gets 4-star ratings, it increases the click-through rate. So people, again, seeing the cover, the ratings, seeing the title, the description, to people clicking on it by 89%. So you pretty much double the number of clicks and therefore download and listening you get just by moving from 3 to 4 stars. It's really important. So again, things podcaster could play on is you cover out the title, the first couple of lines of the description, and the star ratings.
I have that infographic in mind what you just mentioned, so I'll link to it in the show notes. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's very impressive the amount of extra downloads you can get from simply improving your app icon, and the same is probably true of podcast cover art. And hopefully we'll be the first one to release the first studies on these numbers, like improving your cost per download and your click-through rate with better cover art. What does it change completely for? Sorry, what does it change for Voxelize users?
The first thing that it validates for all of our users the importance of PVO. We like to say to be heard, you first need to be seen. It's a bit counterintuitive, but people will start consuming your content, not technically when it comes into the, but it will start with at some point of time someone clicking on a mouse, on a touchpad, or on the phone to actually launch a download. So it validates the importance of PVO. Depending on the show, depending if it's a native podcast, a replay podcast, the content, we have seen cases where the number of impressions on search was close to 15 times higher than any other sources. So it really shows that the way people may come across your show is actually by starting a search within Spotify, which is natural. When you land on Spotify, the first thing you see at the top is that search bar. You want to look for content on the web, search bar, Google. You want to look for content on the App Store, search bar. You want to look for content on Spotify about football news, Ukraine, Israel. That's the first thing you're going to type. It's the search bar. So that's what it's the first change that it's bringing. The other thing is it shows the importance to measure all of that. It's not only being aware that people discover content by searching, is how do I become more visible? And if I increase my visibility score, which is our proprietary index, or by improving my visibility score, how much does that translate into downloads? And it's bringing, as I said at the beginning of the show, it brings that data-driven marketing, data-driven mentality towards the world of digital audio. It was about time.
Okay, let's look a bit forward now. I was super excited to test drive this new feature in Spotify for podcasters. I was very excited to discover the data. However, I do have like a wish list or a shopping list of things that they could do to make the interface better. Do you want to give us your 2 cents about this?
It's a start. It's a baby step, but a big step in the right direction. I wish you could have more than 30 days of data, because today you can only look back 30 days. I wish you could download all that data and have data by day. Today you can't. I know of people that go to Spotify for Podcaster daily and look at the numbers for the rolling 30 days to calculate how much ad on a given day. Could be done. It's just painful. The other thing is, it doesn't tell you in which countries that happens. Are my downloads, let's say I'm an English-speaking show, are my downloads coming out of India, US, UK, or France, Germany, any other country? Then it doesn't tell you, gives you many impressions, but doesn't tell you, is it the show that is put forward? Is it a given episode? If an episode, which episode? It's a baby step. It's a big baby step and in the right direction. It's a first step toward people realizing the importance of PVO or SEO for podcast within the platforms. I'm confident that given the very data-driven nature and DNA of Spotify, it will improve over time. I'm pretty sure the other listening platforms will tag along, because if podcasters use it, or digital audio publishers use it daily, they would want the same on other platforms. Again, it's not perfect, but it's a baby step. It's in the right direction, and there is enough data already for you to understand how things work, to start taking the right measures. And we always say to our clients that start acting now while it's fairly easy, because the learning curve will be steep. And as the tools get more and more data-driven, catching up as it gets very complicated will be hard. It's going to be a hard ramp up. So get started now. You have a bit of data, you get a feel. It's not perfect, but you have enough data to really get started. So get started.
Yeah, great. It's better to jump in where it's still simple, and it's better to be a bit frustrated about the lack of data than be completely overwhelmed by a very complex dashboard. For the people who want to track their daily impressions and not lose the data, I've actually created a sheet where they can keep track of the impressions day by day. It's just log in every day, enter the new number from the last day, and that way you can keep track and also calculate your impression to download ratio, which is pretty useful. I'll link that in the show notes. Thank you so much for giving us your perspective on this new feature. And yeah, as we mentioned, a great leap forward by Spotify there. Really exciting times.